For the last Sunday in July, you've found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, Kasim Reed gets tough with his police and fire employees. DeKalb County passes a tax cut, sort of, and a casino is looking at sites all over the city. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us. It's hard to believe it's near the end of July. We've got school starting in just 2 weeks, which is, in my mind, ridiculous on its face. But anyway, Theron Johnson's here. Glad you could be with us, sitting in for Jeff.
Thank you.
We are glad you're here. Now, because you're here, I'm going to start right out with Kasim Reed.
Yeah, I figured that.
Well, I thought it was interesting. We've talked about the angry Kasim and the smiling Kasim. He looked really angry this week when he called out policemen and firefighters for their continued appeal of the pension situation in the city, and the council passed a budget in which the police and firemen don't get raises.
Well, I'm so glad that you said that the council passed the budget, because that hasn't really been reported. I mean, C.T. Martin introduced this 3.5% pay raise for about 3,000 city employees, and so these are hardworking employees of the city of Atlanta that are going to have a pay raise. Now, let's shift to the mayor. One of the things that we really got to sort of talk about is in 2011, when the mayor came in 2010, he tackled pension reform. But in 2011, police officers, firefighters, and jail workers received the same 3.5% pay raise, and other employees did not get a pay raise. So this now we get to 2015.
That's right.
And they do. But the thing that the mayor said is that you can't sort of be in a federal, sort of law, a Supreme Court lawsuit with the city. Not just with him and the council, but the city, and then turn around and want to ask for a pay raise. Now, the other thing that the mayor said that I think kind of got left out was that he's willing to revisit this in coming days to really make sure that he continues to be an advocate for police, fire, and
Theron, I think that's fine, but it's my understanding, talking to a couple of longtime sources, that attrition has picked up again among the policemen and the firemen. Apparently the suburbs are really recruiting them, and they're going out there. Well, and I think a lot of it's because you left out a key part of that. In the pension deal, they had to give back a much higher share of their money into the pension fund.
Well, that's cool,
which negated the raise.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Dave. But keep in mind, when Mayor Reed walked in on January 4th, 2010, and I was there, I mean, the city was on the verge of being insolvent. So he had to make some hard choices. And so the other thing I want to lay out, and I support labor unions, and I know Phil does as well from time to time, but the labor unions really were at the table. They had conversations with the council and the mayor, and they eventually supported the pension plan. So I think what we got to do is this, and this is going to be a hard few weeks for the mayor and the council, because police, fire, and jail workers are essential to city's operation. And so they're going to have to continue to try to figure out how they can work this out.
But isn't this smacking of retribution? I mean, these people, whether you agree with them or not, the firefighters and the police, they have a right to go to court. And to say that I'm not going to give them any raises while they're in court, that's wrong.
Well, it wasn't.
That's un-American.
But Phil, hold on. It wasn't the mayor who said that. The council said that. What the city
council? The mayor can speak out.
No, what the council did is that they approved the same 3.5% pay increase that they approved 4 years prior. Now, the mayor has also said, and you know this, Phil and Dick and Alexis, is that Mayor Reed has committed more resources to police and fire and the jail than any.
Yes, but Dick is right. I'm hearing the same thing. Attrition, you know this. You
I know
keep up with it.
It's one thing about what you hear, and it's also about.
Well, I talk to firefighters and cops probably more than you do.
But these are facts.
And morale is down.
Let me change the
morale is down.
Look,
it smacks of retribution.
Let me tell you something. If they win that suit, if the public safety employees win that suit, the city's got real budget problems.
But here's the thing. Also, and I'm sorry, Alexis, to cut you off, but they lost twice. They started off in lower court, then they went to state, and then they basically appealed in the Supreme Court.
And the other thing I was going to say, pointing out what you said earlier, is that they were actually at the table when this was being worked out, and they were supportive initially. So I'm not sure they have a really good chance of winning.
Let me stay right there with you, Alexis. The city council also, led by Michael Julian Bond, wants to add carvings to Stone Mountain.
Yes.
Now, he doesn't want to take down the Confederate heroes, but he does want to add, I forget which ones he wants to add. There have been a lot of suggestions this
Jimmy
week.
Carter, your favorite.
Jimmy Carter, that's right. He wants to put the worst president until now.
And Martin
worst
Luther King
ex-president.
Jr.
Yeah.
is there the suggestion.
And that's fine. I think I even suggested Martin Luther King Jr. once because of his speech. But at any rate, this isn't going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen because one thing, it's an historic carving and piece of art. They may come up with some other ideas for some other types of memorials, which I think would be appropriate to do. But I don't think they're going to do anything to retouch the carving. Although this morning I did hear someone suggest Ray Charles, which might not be a bad idea.
Let's jump in here really quick and bring a historical perspective to this. So, the state that we all love and live in, I'm born and raised here, is 282 years old, right? And so if you really look at what Michael Julian Bond said, it wasn't so much about taking off the Confederate.
Right.
So it was about adding on to it. So, hold on, let me finish.
You've been filibustering for about 5 minutes.
No, you're going to like what I'm saying.
But it's a Confederate memorial.
No, here we go.
It is a Confederate memorial.
What he's saying and what I'm saying is, the other person that was mentioned that we left out was James Oglethorpe. Now, as you may or may not know, when James Oglethorpe came to find Georgia, one of the 13 colonies, it was one of the colonies that was not slaved on. Now, he also, to his death, he was one of the first white men to denounce slavery, and he remained against slavery until the day he died.
What you want to do is you want to detract from the salute to the fallen Confederate soldiers. Why don't you do your own Oglethorpe Memorial or your own Ray Charles? Well, you don't want to let me talk here.
No, you don't.
But I'll tell you what.
Let me go to you, Phil.
I want you. Thank you.
No, not on that.
I think you ought to do your own memorials if you want to have your own memorial. Do your own Oglethorpe Memorial.
So you don't support James Oglethorpe?
Stop it,
Is that what you're
everybody.
saying?
Come
a
on,
big
Phil.
statue of Martin Luther
You don't
King
support
Jr. is
James
going
Oglethorpe?
up at the state capitol.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm talking
that's
about James
great.
Oglethorpe.
And I'm saying even a Confederate memorial could include some kind of memorial to African Americans because they were part of the Confederacy. I'm like a third, fourth, fifth generation Georgian. So come on. I can trace my roots to the
Let me change the
Confederacy.
subject, but just a footnote. The state of Connecticut, where I once worked, the Democratic Party there has renamed its Jefferson Jackson Bailey Dinner, and they're taking Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, and Andrew Jackson off the name of their Democratic Party dinner.
It's cleansing that the left wants to do. They
please.
want to
Thomas
wipe out.
Jefferson.
They want to wipe it out.
Phil, don't forget about the other 278 years in this state. Unless as
I
Alexis said.
haven't forgotten about anything, as I said.
But you're opposing James Oglethorpe, the founder of this great state. You said
I said repeatedly, build your own memorial to Oglethorpe.
All right, I want to do something quickly.
It's us, Phil.
Okay, enough of that for
Georgians.
now. Let me do something quick. I think we also ought to mention, since we're all about the city of Atlanta today in this opening block, the city pension funds are now trying to get rid of that fella, Larry Gray, and his company, Gray & Company. That story's been around for quite a while. He's been kicked out of a couple of other cities, or his firm has. He had some losses, and now, Phil, I gather the pension leaders are trying to figure out how to get out of the contract?
That's right. And you know what lawyers always tell us, there's no contract that can't be broken.
Well, let's again, I got to make sure that we stay factual on this show. Let's talk about how do we get to this point. The mayor asked him to resign a year or so ago, and he resigned. Now, what's happening, really, Phil and Dick and Alexis, is that you have a committee that's built up of police and fire, and also general employees.
The larger general
the larger
employees,
employees. And so they're at odds. They really like this gentleman. I mean, some folks really like him, and the other ones, so they can't get to a resolution. But again, this is hard, and they're going to get there. But let's not forget the part where when the mayor and others identified that something was going on, he immediately asked the gentleman to resign, and he did.
Okay, we got to get out. I think that's about it on the subject of the city of Atlanta this week. When we come back, we're going to talk about DeKalb and a sort of a small tax cut. Oh, well, I was wrong. We're also going to talk about casinos for Atlanta. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
And please remember us on Facebook and on YouTube. Turning our sights, we'll stay in the city of Atlanta for just one more thing. The MGM casino people must think they have a shot at doing something in Georgia because they're openly looking at 3 sites in the city, the downtown Gulch, where near the World Congress Center and all that, Turner Field, which would, I think, be a blow to the plans Kasim Reed has for Georgia State, and the Civic Center, which is a citywide elephant. And I'm not quite sure how close the MARTA access is to to the Civic Center. There's a Civic Center
It's a couple
station, but
blocks,
it's a
yeah.
couple of blocks, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can say that. I don't think it's going to happen, so I'm going to move on.
Well, not so
Yeah.
fast. Not so
Okay,
fast.
okay.
Not so
I
fast.
think all of us have an opinion on this.
Right.
I think it could happen over a period of several years because when we've talked a little bit about it on the broadcast, you need, Nick, a constitutional amendment. Now, that's a heavy lift. You have to have 2/3 vote in each house of the General Assembly. Yes,
And
the
the people.
governor's opposed to it, but
He won't be the governor
he won't be.
always.
That's right. That's the right answer.
Well, real quick.
And so I think that it's at the long haul where you want to have local option. I want to emphasize that local option.
Phil is on message, man. You must. But I want to disclose that, I am, along with others, are members of a team that MGM is assembling. So I want to be fully disclosed on that. However, the thing that the mayor said yesterday that I think, again, I want to make sure people understand things to its totality, is that he said it would be financial malpractice to not take the call of a MGM and other casinos that want to come and basically bring $1 billion to this economy
Yeah.
and roughly create about 4,000 jobs. So I think the mayor was really good yesterday in saying that he's going to open up his doors to meet with MGM. And this is not the MGM bill. This is a bill that's been proposed, is in study committee right now to try to preserve hope. So I think we got to make sure we start
Well,
messaging.
plus
I don't
there-
see it happening in the next couple of years, is my point.
Well, it's potentially
You're
could
probably
be
right.
it could potentially be introduced in legislation in the next couple of years. But I also think that they're looking not just at Atlanta but Savannah as well, which would be
Correct.
about 10,000 jobs.
gonna be
ultimately.
roughly
So it would be a
about five, yeah,
big,
about
big,
six-
Well,
big
Alexis, you're
target to
right.
look at.
Ron Stevens, the legislator for Savannah, actually introduced a bill. Now, I don't know if this is feasible. He wanted to have 6 sites. Now, that can be changed, but it'd be interesting to see a study as to how much revenue, to your point, can come in for not just Hope, but for pre-K, which
Let
is
me
funded by the
let me
lottery.
switch over to DeKalb County. This week it passed a budget with a small tax cut, especially for people whose homes haven't increased in value. But what struck me about it, at the 11th hour, Commissioner Nancy Jester voted against it, and they took out the money for Mike Bowers and Richard Hyde to investigate the county as Lee May had wanted. They also turned down a request from the district attorney for 4 more employees in the Public Integrity Department. And they say they might restore the money. I don't think there's much chance of that. Do you, Phil?
No, let's look at it. Mike Bowers and investigator Richard Hyde are looking at every commissioner. Why would they want to fund the investigators that are going after
Yeah,
them?
here we go, guys. You know what I'm so proud of today is that we're on this show, and 2 weeks ago we were talking about Burrow Ellis, who we all agree was very sad of what happened to him. So now here we go, right? Let's talk about this. They got a full commission. If you look at the tape, they were able to agree respectfully, and they got it done. And now they passed the budget. And why you say it's small, Dick, it's really not that small. I mean, anytime when you can cut taxes is really good.
Well,
but also,
but they're not getting. Look, Burl Ellis authored the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Georgia.
But let's go back
Let's
to
get
Mike
that
Bowers.
back.
And so what they did was they said, let's table it. It was expenses. And then also with Robert James, he's going to sit down with Cedric Alexander, because Cedric Alexander has something very similar to what Robert James is proposing in his budget. So I think that the Cavs should be commended. I mean, look at where they were 2 weeks ago, and now to
You're
get
right.
a budget
well,
passed.
Actually, Taryn, my friend, I will give you that.
Thank
It
you,
is
sir.
better now than it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I always want to remember that largest tax cut in the state of Georgia's history. And when I get all that back, tax increase that Burl Ellis put on me, I'll feel better about
And
this
that's,
tax
that's
cut.
the first tax cut I've ever heard you praise. You might
all
want to
about
take that.
that.
Let's
taxes.
turn to Cobb County. I like studies. I like traffic. I like transportation. I was really surprised this week when an environmental study of supposed bus rapid transit on US 41, Cobb Parkway, came back negative. I must say, now I'm not a scientist or a statistician, but if you have taken a whole bunch of people out of their cars and put them in a bunch of big, long buses, haven't you eased the traffic?
Yes and no. Remember, there's a lot of stoplights on 41 too, so they got to figure out, when you stop and start or synchronization, which is
Right.
very important now in urban
I
areas.
think we'll know more about that after
And
our
plus
weekend.
the
but-
continuous development. I mean, Cobb.
That's right.
Every time you go
And that leads
up
us
41,
to
there's
another,
something new.
to a strange case. The commissioner, Lisa Cupid of Cobb County, is a black woman.
The only black commissioner.
And she wrote a very long memo to the county describing an incident in which she was tailed aggressively by an undercover police officer as she was going home early in the morning. She'd been studying for the bar examination. And when she finally called 911, uniformed police came and escorted her into her subdivision, and the undercover unit disappeared. Is this? I don't get that. She
Yeah, that
wasn't
was very
driving
disturbing,
erratically.
and it was hauntingly familiar to what happened in Texas, where the woman
Absolutely.
was pulled over and ended up dead 3 days later in jail
Put this in perspective, though. The
because she didn't
officer,
put her flasher on.
the officer wanted to check the license plate. I've seen this. You've all seen it, where they have to go up close and run the plate. Could be a stolen car. That's what they have to do. And then when he found that this is a legitimate
And it was
thing,
1:30 in the morning.
It was 1:30 in the morning. He backed off, and all was okay. I think it's much ado about nothing.
Oh, I disagree completely,
Well,
especially given what's been happening around the country
Correct.
with incidences between particularly people of color and the police.
I've had policemen come behind me, check my license plate, and move away. I don't see.
You were speeding. What were you doing?
No, they just are checking. You know, late at night. I don't see a problem with it. I think she's making a racial thing out of nothing.
Well, I
I-
don't know that she's
disingenuous,
trying to
though.
make it racial. I think she was genuinely scared at the aggressiveness.
Absolutely.
We don't know how aggressive that undercover police officer was in pulling up behind her to check the plate. Anyway, one thing I want to just mention in Clayton County, because it's important, the Southern Regional Hospital, which is the county's third largest employer, looks like it's going to be bailed out by a nonprofit hospital corporation from California, which would save a lot of jobs if that happens. I don't know how a nonprofit can turn around a big hospital like that. We'll have to wait to see more details.
It's all
but
about
that,
cash flow.
well, and the taxpayers have already bailed out that
A
hospital.
nonprofit doesn't necessarily have to be a nonprofit in
That's
the way
right.
they operate.
Exactly right.
All right, we've got to get out. When we come back, I'm not sure. We'll make some decisions in just a minute.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at myfoxatlanta.com.
A couple of quick political items. In the city of Sandy Springs, they've had so much growth and proposed growth that the city council last week passed a 6-month moratorium on new zoning applications. I'm not really clear what all it covers, but they're just trying to bring it to a halt. In the city of Brookhaven, the Attorney General said that the city attorney mishandled and violated the open records law. Now, where that goes from there, I don't know. And in that contested state house race in Brookhaven, Sandy Springs, and Chambly, Catherine Bernard, who was the third place finisher, has not yet endorsed J. Max Davis, who needs her Republican support.
That's right. They had a lunch meeting just the other day, and that's a very critical seat in House District 80. That could flip to the Democrats. Taylor Bennett is the liberal Democrat in an August 11th special election, low turnout. And so the Bernard support to Davis is critical.
Well, I think it is. And by the way, that Taylor Bennett fellow seems like a nice guy. I've listened to him on the radio, and a football player and all that, but there's something wrong with him. He's only for working families. So does that mean he's a Democrat who doesn't care about the poor?
Well, he's also a big Planned Parenthood
Poor
supporter, too.
people work.
Well,
what are you talking
poor
about?
people work. They just want better jobs. And why do you have to refer to him as a liberal Democrat? Why can't you just
well,
be a
he
Democrat?
is.
He is. He's an Obama supporter.
That doesn't
you
make
know.
him liberal.
Oh, it doesn't make him a right winger. Let me tell you
How
that.
about Planned Parenthood? That makes
He's a
him a
Planned
liberal.
Parenthood supporter. That sick
Hey,
organization.
it's nothing wrong with giving women choice.
You're
I
in
wanna
favor
get-
of this sick, warped philosophy
Hey, how
of
about
selling
that
body
tape?
parts?
No,
I think that's
stop.
that's a stunt that's been created by this guy that's going to eventually
can't
go
believe
away.
that.
Phil,
said that. Yeah, I
Phil,
can't believe
yesterday, on Thursday, the House in Washington voted to deny federal aid to sanctuary cities because they're breaking federal law.
That's right.
The Georgia delegation and the Maine, the Republicans all went along with that. I was struck by something else that's in your area of expertise. You've suggested this before, but now there's a study that says 9 out of 10 illegal aliens who come into the United States and are given court hearings don't show up.
That's right.
9 out of 10.
It's terrible. It's been going on since the Bush years, and it's been continuing out of control in the Obama years. And that's why people are calling for fixing the border and for stepping up deportations. That's why the union, ICE, Immigration Control Enforcement, is suing the Obama administration because they can't do their jobs. It's
So you
terrible.
support Donald Trump and how he's emerged and what he's
I
saying?
support border control. Any candidate that's for
But what about
border
Trump?
controls.
I mean-
Are you in favor of
No, I'm
controlling the
saying,
border?
Trump's talking about criminal illegal
Criminal
aliens.
illegals, we're talking sanctuary cities. I know you never will speak against Kasim Reed, but Atlanta.
That's not true.
But Atlanta is not cooperating with the feds and going after, as you point out, these criminals.
But this is the problem: is they need to fix the illegal status for people who have been here for 20 years. That is the
No,
problem.
that's not
fix the
what
border.
Trump's
Because
talking
that's why
about.
people will not show
That's
up
the
for a
last thing
hearing
you do.
because they
The
do not
first
want to
thing
get
you
deported.
do is fix the border and stop the
we've been
influx.
Phil, why
fixing the
did-
border. We've been saying that for 30
Don't you
years.
think everybody in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and the other places know that 9 out of 10 don't show up to the hearing? So once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
But Phil,
It's
since
a magnet.
you're so compassionate about the border, are you going to join Donald Trump? I think he's down there this weekend, and he's down. Are you going to go down there and wear one of those hats like
And-
he's been
and
wearing?
I
have
think
the
it's
Mexicans build
wonderful.
a
I think it's
fence and pay for
wonderful,
it.
whether you agree or disagree with Donald Trump, that he has made illegal immigration a big issue. All of the other candidates on the Republican side are talking about securing the border. I think it's a good thing. Let the you've always
Let
been
me,
in favor of starting the conversation. That's the big liberal line. He started the conversation.
Let me jump in and change the subject. I think this was kind of an important week politically for the Democrats running for president because the Quinnipiac poll out of Connecticut showed that Hillary Clinton's support is collapsing in battleground states, namely Colorado, Iowa, and Virginia. And Theron, as an advisor to Democratic politicians, if I were not me, you look at those trustworthy figures, right?
Yeah.
They say she's not. 61% of Colorado voters say she's not honest or trustworthy.
Well, here's the thing. So when you're in a presidential,
make that up?
Well, when you're on a presidential campaign, you really now this early on, you have about 10 to 15 pathways to getting 270 electoral votes, and so definitely she's got to look at those numbers. But I think a result of what you're saying, I want to kind of go back to Donald Trump. You know, I said on this show 2 weeks ago and made him my loser, but I gotta really say that Trump is really tapping into an emotion that the Republicans are sort of reacting to, and I think that the Clinton campaign is going to have to really sort of look at what he's doing because I mean he's not going to probably be the nominee, but he's really saying what a lot of Americans feel. But back to Hillary. Don't cut me off, Phil. I think it's so early, and I think that once she get into the debates and people really get a chance to see what she'll be
See,
fine.
that's my point.
Still early.
I think the more people hear her and see her, the less they like her. And I think that this early to have, she's been around for 25 years. This early to have trustworthiness issues like that is pretty shocking. We've got to get out. When we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll start our winners and losers segment with you, Theron. I didn't warn you. Go.
No problem. First, and I know you guys have talked about this, and we've talked about it, but I want to send a special congratulations to Marita Davis Johnson, who was elected as the commissioner from the 5th District. I'm a big fan of hers and the congressman. They did a wonderful job campaigning, and progression is happening in DeKalb County. The second, I want to make my winner the brave men, the Marines in Chattanooga, who unfortunately gave their lives basically trying to alert others from this killer. And I want to give a special shout out to Skip Wells, who was in Atlanta, Cobb County, Georgia.
Sprayberry High School
yeah,
graduate.
definitely going to miss him. And then my loser has got to be the Sandra Bland case in Waller, Texas. You know, there's a lot of information coming out, but we still don't know why she was really treated the way that she was treated, from allegedly being pulled over from a failing to use her signal. As Alexa said earlier, this is just a problem in America that we've got to continue to address.
Well, I don't want to get into that one right now. Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I'm going to salute Ted Turner. He had a big celebration this week as a portion of Spring Street was named for him, Ted Turner Drive, and celebration of his contributions not only to Atlanta but to the world. You know, he had people who, I don't know if there's anybody who doesn't know that he started CNN and the superstation WTBS. So congratulations to him. Also, the Horizon Theater has a show running called Uprising that was directed by Tom Jones, and everybody should go see that as part of the summer theater festival of black programs. Good.
Phil?
Well, I agree with Theron. I'll make Skip Wells the winner too, our local Marietta among the fallen that were killed by that Muslim extremist. And I would also make as a winner Brian Robinson. We all know Brian and have worked with him. He's the communications director for Governor Deal. He'll be going into the private sector next month, leaving his position.
Brian's a good man.
He's a good man, so we wish him well. And you know, the loser is that ex-Habersham County deputy who was indicted this past week. She lied, actually, about getting the information for a no-knock warrant. That is not the America we all want to live in.
Right.
And I'm glad she's being prosecuted, and the whole Habersham County Sheriff's Department looks bad.
Let me real quickly make Marta a winner for adding Wi-Fi and for adding an Uber app. I think that's very smart of Marta to do that. How about, here's a winner for you, Ollie Schneider-Hans. Yes, we're all going to have to learn how to spell that because he's got a great future in pro golf. The Georgia Tech graduate had a heck of a run at the British Open last week, and we'll have a spelling test next week on the Georgia Gang. And one more if I have time. Steve Spurrier, the old ball coach, read a one-sentence quote from Mark Bradley in a South Carolina newspaper and called a press conference to denounce my old friend, the columnist for the AJC. And Mark admitted he had no idea why, what was happening. But boy, Spurrier's getting, he's getting rabbit ears in his old age, it looks like to me. And we'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.